In the past few episodes, we've been looking at a lot of prime factors which resulted in repeated multiplications, like 2 times 2 times 2 for 8. Today we are going to learn how to use powers to write repeated multiplication. It is probably important for me to mention at this point that in mathematics we have like 7,000 different ways to write the same thing, and powers is one of those things. Powers are also called exponents, an index for one exponent, or indices for many exponents. Students also like to say things like to the power of. Sometimes people will say raised to the power of. In computer programming they say caret for this funny looking hat symbol, and on it goes. So when you hear these terms, it pretty much all means the same thing. At this point, it's probably helpful to visualize it. Here at the bottom we have the base, and up at the top we have the power, or exponent or index, and it represents repeated multiplications. Now if you put a power into a calculation, or into the computer, we write it like this, with a caret. Okay, so repeated multiplications, let's review. Remember back to your younger days when life seemed so much simpler? And you asked your dad, "Daddy, what's 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3?" Instead of writing like a bajillion 3's being added together, we simplified it to 21 times 3. As it turns out, this way of writing repeated additions is much quicker, and getting to the answer is pretty fast as well. I mean, it all seemed near magical when you were only 5, right? Well, exponents are a bit similar, except it isn't about repeated additions. Now it is about repeated multiplications. There are 2 ways of writing the same information. We can write it out in expanded form, or we can write it out in index form or exponent form, whatever you want to call it. Using powers, or exponents, is another, shorter way of writing repeated multiplication. There are 2 ways of writing the same information, expanded form and index form. This method of writing repeated multiplication is quite useful when we deal with our prime factors. Consider highly composite numbers.
Nerd alert!
Numbers with a lot of factors, like 48 or 120. Okay, let's start with 48. 48 we have 2 times 24, 2 times 12, 2 times 6, and 2 times 3. And this can be written out as 4 2's, multiplying each other times 3, and then we can break this down into index form to write it more simply, where the 4 2's become 2 to the power of 4. Now for 120 we'll have the same kind of thing. In 120 we have 2 times 60, 2 times 30, 2 times 15, and 3 times 5. In expanded form we'll have 3 2's multiplying each other times a 3 times a 5, and then in index form we're going to take those 3 2's and turn that into 2 to the power of 3. And this is how you write out prime factors in a shorter way. This concludes your first lesson, and let me say it was a very short lesson, on exponents. Next episode, we're going to generalize these ideas and come up with some rules for working with exponents. I leave you with the lesson questions, as always. Thanks for sticking around, and I hope that all of this was very helpful for you.